All right. I was just mentioning if you can find the Zoom Q&A buttons, it's probably under the three dots more menu. That's probably the best place for you to ask questions because we'll be able to get at them in an organized way at the end. Otherwise, use the chat for whatever. If you need to unmute, you can unmute. I love it to have when we can have people have their videos on too, just so that I can see what's going on in the rest of the room, not just this room. Okay, without any further ado, welcome to our open house for Software for Climate. Software for Climate is a course that I designed with my wife and partner to be your next stepping stone to your climate journey, your climate career, whatever next you want to do in climate, and also to help you figure out maybe what that might be. So today we're going to be giving you hopefully a really great overview in what to expect if you take this course. I'm going to start by introducing myself and my partner a bit. I'm going to do a course overview, talk about some of the mechanics of it, and what we'll cover and how we'll cover it. Talk about some final project examples. So these are the final projects that students come up with in the last section of the course. And then we have two special alumni guests that have volunteered to answer your questions here from a hopefully unbiased point of view. I'm really excited to have Kara and David here. And so they're going to tell you a little bit about what they got from the class. And then we'll have open space for Q&A. Again, using the Zoom Q&A feature primarily, probably, because we have about 20 people in here, so maybe not too many. We'll see how we are once we get there. So, course creator intros. Why am I and my wife the right people to be teaching you this course if you want to take it? My wife Jaime and I are both full stack software engineers. We've both been technical leads. We have pretty similar careers, but we do diverge in some ways. Jaime tends to come from the product manager direction, and I do a lot more getting my hands deep into the data. And so I think that means that we're able to speak to like a lot of different sides of the world in climate and software. Our careers, we'd met each other at Olin College of Engineering when we went to school, graduated in 2012. Since then, we have had over a decade in the software industry, mostly working on climate. We've done our time in big tech at Microsoft and Meta. We've spent most of our time, though, working in climate tech startups. Jaime worked at a climate tech unicorn called Convoy. And then in 2022, we decided that it was time to join forces again to found Option Zero, which is our software for climate consultancy. And since then, we've worked with maybe a dozen or so different climate tech companies. And so we've got to have our hands in a lot of different pies and see a lot of different approaches to how software can accelerate climate solutions. So overall, that means that we have our roughly 24, little more combined years at more than 15 climate tech companies that we've worked with. And we've designed this course to basically like welcome you to that world of climate tech that we've seen, especially the software application side. So, course overview. This is designed to be an immersion in common themes that we have seen throughout our careers. It's kind of broken down into three sections. There's this green section. Week one is just introductions to software and climate, some frameworks for how to think about how different solutions fit into the overall space. And then we have this blue section here, which is where we will do 4 deep dives into specific topics that we've seen come up over and over when we're in our work in the intersection of software and climate. Talk about public data sources, which are just like critical, so important to know what's out there and how to use it. Already, some of it's just free for the taking, just needs to be reorganized in order to have a super useful climate solution. Geospatial and AI solutions, energy modeling, super critical whenever you're doing anything to do with the grid or energy efficiency or even clean energy production. And then software hardware interfaces. which is where software meets the real world, because climate change is a problem of not just bits, but also of atoms. And it's really useful to have some connection with the real world at some point. And then those last 3 weeks of the course, we have dedicated to final projects. This is where students will take things that they've learned from the deep dives and then also come in with their own background. And we also encourage people to work together in teams to basically build something cool. Take what you have and run with it. It's very open-ended, so people can take it where they want to, but also we try to provide a good amount of structure so that nobody's just like left wallowing for 3 weeks. We get some pretty cool final project results. Let me drop the full schedule in here also. Just it's too much to talk about in just the chat or in the presentation here, but you might want to pull that up so that you know how the course actually fits into your real life schedule. One thing that's special to this cohort is we're going to have a spring break week between 4 and 5, which is in mid-March. So that leaves us one extra week in there. It's actually kind of a cool time, a good time to have a 1 week break, because for the software hardware interfaces class, sometimes you might have your own IoT device that you've set up at home collecting data throughout that week, and then you can use that data afterwards. So each week, we do a few things that are typically like start to be a pattern. We have 3 required components. There's async reading that happens through the Terra.2 app. We pull together a bunch of resources that are great, that are hopefully up to date and useful for you to get background in whatever we're talking about that week. Then we have our live class over Zoom, just like this. And then we have a homework assignment, which is typically where we give you some example code that you start with. And if you're not very comfortable with software, you just have to read it, kind of understand roughly what's going on, change. We have some specific things for you to change, and so that you actually get your hands at least a little bit dirty. And those assignments are also designed so that if you are like a super experienced software engineer, you can take that and run with it in a lot of different ways. And we have suggestions for how you can do that. And you can also go your own way on that and turn it into some sort of bigger portfolio project if you want to, and if you have the time to. And then we have couple optional components. We have a Slack channel that's open, that's great for asking questions about homework, because your fellow students will often answer things quicker than I can, and just share all kinds of things. We also have an alumni Slack channel that you'll be added to after the course. And then we also have office hours that are open every week for you to come and talk to me about anything that you want to talk about, career progressions, challenges, life, the universe, and everything. And then each week, the way that routine goes, we typically have the week before we unlock the async reading and homework so that you can work on that over the weekend. And then the actual week of that topic, we have our lecture on Tuesdays, and then we have our peer reviews on Fridays. So that's when you come with your homework done, and you work with your peers, and you're working in small groups to discuss what you learned, what the challenges are that you ran into, and go from there. That's basically the structure of the class. Oh, there's one more section, right? Final projects. As I mentioned, this is where students take what they learned in the deep dive sections and their own backgrounds to kind of go wherever they want to. And also a lot of them are a lot of the time we end up working in teams. Let me send you another link here. We have this showcase that I just put together. When you complete the class, you're given the option to share your final project on our class portfolio. So that's somewhere you can like link to from LinkedIn or whatever. And you can also get an idea of what people are coming out of the class with and what they're building. Some examples, a couple of final projects examples that I want to highlight.
It's 9:15.
It's 9:15. um, is, did you all hear that? Zoom just told me it's 9:15. Great. Now we all know. Um, this project is a public data focused project where a group of students came together um, to pull together a bunch of different public data on uh, GDPs, weather data, United Nations resolutions, and then they refine this data that's into scores that rank countries based on their performance in providing access to safe water, um, and also like the level of funding that's being applied in different places. And the goal here is to take people who might want to invest and do good in the direction of ensuring safe water supplies, and give them some useful metrics to work with. And this is all done 100% um, in Hex, which is the platform that we use for our homework assignments. They created a public dashboard that you can see, and they did this all using publicly available data that was there. Let's see. And then there's another project that I wanted to highlight that people loved. This was a really simple and elegant application of our software and hardware interface and energy modeling topics. This was Kara's project. She placed IoT devices around her home to collect data on the thermal mixing effect of fans. And so she just found out that just by turning on her ceiling fans and her ground fans, she vastly improved the efficiency of her central heating system. Found out that like basically she was doing a lot to heat the heat on in the ceiling, but not actually like at the couch. And this was one of the fun things that we do once we do our final project showcase on the last day of the class is that we vote for superlatives. So all of the students get to vote on each other's projects and see which was most inspiring, best execution, best overall, things like that. Kara picked up a bunch of these awards, but you can see how just having that basic like ability to use these devices and then process the data and then understand how heat flows, all these things that we talk about in the class, you can put them together, and then this could potentially be turned into. We've had people startups. We've had people, maybe just change how they operate in their homes, and we've had people just take these things and put them in their portfolios and use them to get jobs. So you might want to ask Kara more questions on this. Luckily, we have her here today. We also have David Huff-Fanoni from our 2025 cohort. Kara was on our April 2024 cohort. She's a technical program manager. She's now moved on to Alphabet's Moonshot project in electric grid transformation, which is called Tapestry. And then David is a little bit more recent of a student, February 2025 cohort. So that's just 1 year ago. He is now a lead software engineer at Topanga, where he is working on tackling food waste. So excited to have these two alumni here. Looks like we'll have plenty of time for questions for them. Before I throw to them, I want to remind you all that we have the Q&A feature open in Zoom. I don't see any questions on there yet. So if somebody wants to be brave and throw the first question on there, the three of us will help you. We'll do our best to answer them for the rest of the time that we have here. But first, let's see, Kara, want to go first and give your overall impression of what you thought of the class?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for inviting me here. It's great to see you again and get to talk about the class. I had a great experience in this class. One of the things I really loved about it was actually interacting with the data, actually interacting with systems. That's the learning platform that they've put together is just very, very usable, and it made it easy to experiment with real technology and real code without struggling so much to get the basic setup in place. I had a ton of fun with that. I always would rather build something than just read about it. I also took the Learning for Action class, which is also excellent, but it's very different in that this is very hands-on, and I learned a different way by actually building something and interacting with the information and with the actual code, or building building a thing, is very compelling to, in terms of it's very gratifying, but it's also a better way for, at least for me, to learn. So for me, in addition, I hadn't taken a structured class in a long time, and I had I maybe wasn't so optimistic about about the interactions with other students in the class, but that turned out to be a really, really enriching element of it. In particular, not just for support on projects, but seeing what other people were doing. And then people were always throwing resources into the chat, and we'd be talking about one topic, and people would be putting news or like something that they had heard about or something from a previous project, into the chat, and really enriching the whole conversation and giving us more to learn about and think about. In addition, when we did the final project, we did a first draft, and then we did a review with a subset of our cohort, and I got very, very actionable feedback from that. Really helped me up level my final presentation and fill some significant gaps. So overall, I found the cohort to be very inspiring and motivating, uh, and again enriching the class. Yeah, so overall, I found it to be a ton of fun, and then doing the final project at the end was an opportunity to put it all together and build something and show it off. So yeah, overall, I found it to be a great experience, and I thank Jamie and Jason for that.
Sweet, great to hear it.
Yeah, I would definitely echo everything Kara just said. Uh, yeah, I think the kind of hands-on approach to the class, like you kind of have the first week is the intro, which I really enjoyed. Like I'm brand new to the climate space. Wasn't super familiar with kind of anything in terms of like what are all the actual problems and like how does software fit into solutions. So even just the first week, which was more kind of lecture and reading, just getting familiar with things. Like I found that super valuable, and then we kind of built on that through all the hands-on weeks. But yeah, as Kara said, like the platform that we use, Hex, which I also get to use at work now, which is fun. But
Oh, great.
that's a really great platform for like just building interactive little applications. And with like all the data sources that you get to explore in the class, like it's real fun to like pipe those into there and kind of manipulate the data and come up with charts and try to explore like what's going on in the world, whether it's air quality. My final project with my team, we were looking at air quality in India, so there's data sources to explore for that. Um, Geospatial, energy, like all kinds of cool stuff that you get to explore. But yeah, that like hands-on approach was something I really enjoyed. I'm a full stack engineer, so like getting in there and building something like is really gets me engaged. So I love that aspect of the course. Um, yeah, what else? I would also echo what Kara said about like having the cohort with you. I mean, Jamie and Jason are like definitely an excellent resource. They shared, so many great things along the way, but it's also great to hear from um, the other students in the course that are coming from all kinds of different backgrounds and have experience, in different domains. And so that really kind of added another layer to the course that are, really, really got a lot out of that. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was a great introduction. Like it was the first course that I kind of took to get into the climate space. So I thought it was a great introduction, especially for me, coming as a software engineer, where I could kind of like take my software engineering skills and be like, oh, okay, this is how I can use them. These are the problems we're dealing with, and this is where software fits in. So yeah, really enjoyed it.
Cool,
Yeah,
thanks.
just one other thing I totally agree with everything David just said. And another thing I think was very interesting and very, fantastic with Hex and the learning platform was that whether you could go in there for 15 minutes or 15 hours, you could get something out of it. And we had people who, I think David and I both come from something of a software background, but there were people who had like, somewhat less direct hands-on coding experience, and they were able to navigate through the materials as well. And unlike other courses I've been in, the content wasn't really contained to exactly the course content. There's all these publicly available data sets. Our tax dollars around the world pay for this data, and there are many data sets which you can grab and integrate. And so I was able to see, for example, what is the energy mix right now, like today in this part of California where I live. And so being able to interact with that kind of very particular data and explore your own questions was super empowering.
Yeah, that public data. So there's a reason that we put public data sources first in the class, because it's just like, it's just amazing when you realize how much stuff, that's a great way to put it, your tax dollars are paying for, um, that you're just totally free to use. Okay, couple of questions. Oh yeah, so you already touched on this a little bit, Kara, but these two questions that we have are both similar. Is the course only for folks with prior programming experience? And then we have somebody else coming from a PM, ERP, IT background. And it is not only for folks with prior programming experience. I think we might have some messaging in there from somewhere from a long time ago. Some of the people who have gotten the most out of the course have been PM types who have zero or very close to zero prior coding experience. One of the reasons that we use Hex and that we use Python as our main platforms for all the homeworks is that they're really accessible. And the way that we designed the homeworks in particular, you should be able to, as long as you can read like English natural language, you should be able to understand roughly what's going on. You don't have to get into the nitty gritty, because you probably won't end up doing that in your jobs. You don't have to spend, hours and hours bashing your head against the wall trying to understand every line of code. But you will be able to actually get your hands dirty to the extent that you're able to, and you'll learn a lot. Like some of the people that have been like most excited about what they got out of this course have been PMs. And also we love to have PMs in the course. When we get to the final project part, the more we can have like ideas flowing and like organization happening, the 2-ish weeks is how much time you have to do for that final project. So if you can like really effectively manage that time, that often is what defines some of the more like powerful team projects that get created. Does that answer the question? That was from another participant, as well as Liuba. Are there pathways for people transitioning? Yeah. Our course is really designed for anybody who wants to focus on software solutions. And one of the reasons that the PMs, like the coding part is part of the course. One of the reasons that I think PMs get the most out of the course is that we really focus on the different applications. And like as a software engineer, if you like drop into say like a company that's working on grid technology, you'll be writing software, and like that's most of your job. But as somebody who's like at a little bit of higher level thinking about how things need to go together and how you need to prioritize things, it's just that much more important to understand where you're coming from in terms of the project, the problems that you're trying to solve, and the tools that you have to solve them, which is what we try to spend the rest of the course covering. Does that make sense to folks?
I mean, to be even more specific, the instructions are set up in my recollection so that if you just follow the recipe, you can actually run stuff in the notebook. You don't even have to write any code, like zero. You just maybe enter like a number that you choose in a range or something like that, and then push the button and you can see the code execute and it spits out a graph or a visual or whatever. So even if you're not comfortable writing code at all, you can follow the instructions to make the stuff run and see the outputs. And then from there, you can experiment and expand on it to whatever extent that you feel comfortable or, want to engage.
Yeah, it's never been a better time to like get a little more connected with code and what code can do. And because of the way that AI can help, like there's a lot of cases where you might have like a SQL query and you kind of understand what it does and you want it to do something different. you can just click the button in Hex that says like change this a little bit for me, and the AI might actually do a pretty decent job of of doing the coding part for you. So you don't have to really stress too much about that. Question here: is there a target size of the cohort? We're pretty flexible. The way that we organize things so that um, we use breakout rooms so that we get the right size of groups when you're giving each other feedback, and then we do the lectures all together, and then we also have plenty of space in our office hours. We can be pretty flexible. Typically, the cohorts are between 20 and 30-ish to start out with, and then not everybody actually comes to everything live. So some people I never see, which I love to meet everybody in office hours and find out where they're coming from and help them specifically on their journey. But not everybody takes advantage of that. So that's another way that we're flexible with the course. Yeah. Let's see. There was a question in the chat over here. Is there a focus on industry or grid applications of software? Yes. I mean, would you say, Kara, maybe you're the one who's like taken the most from that part of the course?
Yeah, I mean, there was a whole section that was on modeling, right? And I think when I took the class, there were two options. One was about modeling, I think, solar energy on a home, and the other one was a slightly different application that my recollection is a little bit fuzzy, but there was quite a deep dive on electricity modeling and grid. And then in addition to the actual modeling, there are all these data sets, right, that have to do with the grid. Like, where is your power coming from? Which grid? Which grid is, where's power being bought and sold? What is the mix of renewables on it? So there's kind of like that direct element of modeling around energy, solar, home power, and so on. But there's also the element of how the grid comes to you, which you can get insights to through the data sources.
Yeah.
And again, that was one where you could really dive deep, or you could just click the button.
Totally. Let's see. In the chat, we also have a question on how to sign up. I'm going to drop the referral links for Kara and David in here. I'm not actually sure what those referral links do, other than like track.
They give you 20% off, which is pretty good.
Oh, sweet. Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. So yeah, take your pick of those links to sign up. Let's see. Any advice for async folks who can't always attend live sessions to get the most out of the course? That's a great question. I don't know. You get all of the recordings, all of the assignments, all of the reading stuff. You have access to it forever after the course, so you can come to things at your own pace. To get the certificate, if you want the certificate to like show up on your LinkedIn or whatever, you have to actually like view the videos and view the readings and turn in the homeworks within like a couple of weeks after the end of the course. We can be pretty flexible on that. You can just let us know if anything happens. We can always come back and check the homeworks afterwards and then re-trigger the certificates. That's like not that big of a deal. It's very much up to you. Can't always attend. If you can't always attend, I can give you some specific like thoughts on it, on how to cover for anything that you've missed, but it kind of depends on which things in particular you have to miss. Hopefully that answers your question. Do we run this course every quarter? We have been running it pretty much on a quarterly cadence, but we're not necessarily attached to it. It kind of depends on our schedules and things. So we don't have the next cohort scheduled yet, but typically that's what we've been going for. Follow up from the OBA with how helpful is it for the related job search? Do you have any thoughts on that, Kara? I have some thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly the needs are only growing. So, for example, at Tapestry, we've been growing a lot. So I think that even though the job market right now in general is not the best it's been for tech, there are certainly very big areas in climate where there's a lot of hiring going on. You just have to kind of find those, and energy is certainly one of those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's another question from Alex in the chat about how's the market right now for climate software. The job market in general is crazy and weird, with AI and political and economic stuff going on. There is still a lot being done and a lot of excitement in certain areas of climate progress, especially grid stuff. Like when I talk to anybody who's working in the renewable space, it doesn't feel like it's getting harder, mostly because there are large there are billion-dollar companies throwing as much money as they can at building out electrical capacity as fast as possible and faster than anybody thought was possible. So there's a lot of work to be done there, and there's money for it. For the job search in general, the way that I think about this course is it's not like going to be a kill card for your job search. You're not going to be like, hey, look, I did this. And everybody's going to be like, oh my God, let me give you a job. Um, in my experience, when I haven't actually done a traditional job search in a while, things that it there's a certain amount of advantage that you get, and potentially a lot of advantage, depending who you're talking to, in being able to demonstrate that you are aligned with the company's mission that you're trying to join with, and that you have some fluency in the problem space that they're in. And those go together because, like, how can you really, if you, how do you prove that you really care about grid tech? Well, like, if you show up and you're like, I don't know what power lines do, then that's a sign to an interviewer or whatever that you're not going to come in you're not going to come in, ready to hit the ground running in terms of their problems that they're solving. And then conversely, anything that you can do to highlight yourself in the current, like, very noisy job search environment, some things that you can do there are networking, which Teradot can help you with, and your cohort can help you with, and having relevant things on your resume, and interesting portfolio projects to grab somebody's attention. Those are all things that are, like, super helpful that you should be able to get a leg up on from this class. Hope that answers the question. Any other thoughts on that, anyone?
I would just totally agree that for me, I felt so much more confident having actually done some learning and done a project and having things to talk about there. And then when I got questions when I was interviewing, like, what do you think some of the biggest challenges are that we're facing? I had something to say, right? That made sense. And I know also when I've been on the other side as a hiring manager and someone says, "Oh, I'm totally passionate about this, is exactly what I want to do." If they don't have anything they've done to show that commitment, maybe like next hour they're saying like baby diapers is like the number one thing they're into, and the next hour they're like cigarette packaging, whatever they're interviewing for. So I want to see that they've actually, like demonstrated that passion or that interest in some way and dug in. So yeah, for both those reasons, I think it's super, super helpful for interviewing.
Yeah. Okay. Great question here from Micah. Since I will be trying to covertly attend this over lunch while working my soulless corporate gig, do you think I'll still get enough out of the course if my attention during lecture hours is a bit split? I think so. I think people get out of this what the time that they spend. If you can, showing up live is like a good part of it, but it's not necessary to get a lot out of the class. I guess enough is sort of up to you. There is good to have you, Beth. There is a refund policy. I think in the first 2 weeks of the course, Teradot will give you a full refund if you decide that it's not a good fit for you, or like you can't pass off like eating your lunch while going to things, and that's important for you. So there's a bit of flexibility there. But yeah, I would hope so. And a lot of the fun comes from the work that you do outside of the actual uh, live sessions. Let's see some questions about logistics. Sorry if I missed it. Is the weekly class online or recorded or both? Yes, it is live. It is the way that we. That's a great question. I didn't get too deep into this. Our classes aren't live. Classes are on Tuesdays and Fridays at 9 a.m. Pacific to 10:30, and typically the Tuesdays are lecture classes where for roughly an hour I will cover content that overlaps with the reading and stuff like that. Um, that'll happen for roughly an hour, and then from 10 to 10:30 we have totally optional Q&A, so you can just ask whatever you want. Usually the discussion happens on that topic that we've talked about, sometimes not. So that's what happens on Tuesday, and then most Fridays, some of them are lectures. Um, some of them, one of them is the final project presentations, which are super fun, uh, and but most of them are these peer discussion sections where hopefully, ideally, everybody shows up roughly on time. I put you in small groups, and you talk about everything that you learned, or you want to learn, or where you want to go from that week's stuff. And so that's definitely one of the more like we really like force you to talk to each other to make the community happen. And then on top of that, are there any time during the week that anyone connects? That's basically like those are the organized times, and then we have Slack outside of that. And yes, all times that I've talked to are U.S. Pacific time. So we have had people show up from East Asia on their time zones, and we've had people join from like Australia. We've had people join from Europe, though that can be a little harder. Um, we've had people join from South America. It's awesome to have everybody that we can have. Any thoughts on that, Karen David?
I listened to most of the talks, most of the lectures. I ended up listening to them from the recordings because I was like hosting an eclipse party and other like distractions during the actual hours. So I would usually just have it running when it was live, so I could sort of like, I don't know, get the feel, and then like I would actually watch the recording later. That worked fine for me.
Right. Yeah. To be clear, everything is recorded, and then, well, actually, the group sessions where we send people into breakout rooms, we don't generally try to record all the breakout rooms, but the lectures are all recorded, and you can view them whenever you want after they happen. Sometimes it takes us a day or so to get the video up, but um, our goal is to have it up pretty quickly. Final projects organized in groups, or let me share that link one more time about the actual schedule. Softwareexclamation.com /link/schedule. Is that the right one? Yeah. This is just a detailed schedule graphic that I put together with Claude last night because I realized we didn't have a good like visual representation. Tells you when all of the classes are going to be, what we're going to be covering each day, and then when we have no class for final project work the last few weeks, we leave you we give you the time to work with your teams or on your own, which is a good transition to Nathan's question. Are final projects organized in groups or independently? It can be either one. We encourage people to form groups whenever it's feasible to do that, because people just get so much out of their projects when they're doing them in groups. That said, not every project is a group project, and we've had a lot of great individual projects. Like Kara's was one where it was like you were doing something in your own home with your own thing, and you didn't need an organized group. But we've had a lot of cool group projects, and you can see those in our showcase. And I'm not sure if I shared that link yet, but I'll share it again. And so we try to hit Jamie and I mentioned that we met at Olin College of Engineering. One of the things that Olin does a lot is project based learning, and so we have a lot of experience in trying to build the right amount of structure around a project section of course so that you don't feel like you're lost, but you also feel like it's open ended and you have what you need to to make progress and do something cool that's really your own. And hopefully, Karen, David, we do an okay job at that. Great. Yeah. So here's that showcase again. Oops. The V button on my keyboard is acting up, which is really problematic when I'm trying to type things, when I'm trying to paste things. Um, okay, we have one more question in the chat here from AB. Can generalists gain technical skills out of this course? Is this course valuable for generalists working in climate? Yeah. I mean, I'm a generalist working in climate. Um, this is, I guess, partly I tried to build the course that I would have loved to see if I were somebody who were coming from, like, say, big soulless corporate tech towards climate tech. Not that that's like a strict separation. Um, our not so secret motivation for this course is to pull more people from non-climate tech into climate tech, because the more people we can have working on mission oriented work, the better. And so I'm curious what kind of generalist you are, AB. If you want to say more, we might be able to give you some more specific thoughts. But yeah, as I said earlier, it's definitely like a lot of the course is about talking about what the problems are and what the solution spaces are in climate tech that still need more effort. And the type of thing that you don't necessarily just pick up otherwise. Oh, corporate sustainability, climate and business case development. Cool. Yeah, I mean, you in people who are working already in some form of climate, um, we've had good reviews from people doing that as well. Actually, I think Jay Kennedy is one example of somebody who was like working on not corporate but like government sustainability stuff. He took our course. He now like works with Teradu and like does their podcast and also continues um, doing climate work. So that's just one example off the top of my head that it's felt like that was a success. And we do have people who come in from one climate job just trying to like broaden their horizons and learn about other things. Like, as I used to have a full-time job in a climate tech company that felt like 90% of what you do is just code, right? And then maybe 10%, probably more like 2% as actually like learning about that application um, of of climate tech. Like, I was in energy efficiency, and so I learned like a little bit about residential energy efficiency. And it was only after that that I like learned about even like renewables and public data sources and things that actually, in retrospect, would have been helpful in that job, um, or just would have broadened my horizons if I had taken a course like this. Any other thoughts or questions? It's so
Jason,
exciting. Oh yeah, go
I
ahead.
think that last thing you said made me think like, um, yeah, like in my role right now, like most of the work that I'm doing day to day is still just like software engineering. And it just so happens that like, the mission we're focused on reducing food waste, but like, you know, still the stuff that I'm doing most of the time is, I'm like writing Python code. Um, and so I think this course um gives you like, I don't know, just gives more of a sense of like what are all the different kind of again like the problems and solutions going on there, and just gives you more of a framework to understand like how different things fit into climate is impacted by so many different things, and so just like getting a sense of you know uh, how all these systems kind of impact and interrelate with each other. Even if the thing you're doing, like most of the time during the day job, is still like software engineering, or whatever your specific role may be. But having that kind of like background knowledge of how it all kind of fits into the bigger picture of climate impact, I think is just great to have, and something I really enjoyed getting out of the course.
Cool. Yeah, that's not the secret. That's not the secret reason we created the course, but I'm glad it's like a side effect. Um, yeah, let's see. This seems like we're mostly out of questions here. I did remember to record, so this recording should be sent out to everybody who made it today and who didn't make it today. And um, in that in the chat, you have your links to join and get your 20% off if you're inspired to do that. If you have any other questions for the course, let me just put my email down here and also my LinkedIn. You're totally welcome to Jason, reach out to me, ask any questions you have related to the course or not related to the course. So excited to have you all here. It's just warms my heart to see so many people interested uh, in climate solutions, and because we always need more people working on mission oriented work. Any other questions or thoughts before we drop off? All right, thanks everybody. Yeah, thank you, David and Kara. Glad you could come and help us out, and lovely to talk to you all. Hope I get to see you again soon.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.